me again. A lot has happened since I last broke through the barrier of shitty hellscape internet and shared my life with all of you. Want some highlights? Too bad, you're getting them anyway. First off, I tried a couple of the things that were suggested to me by you guys. In no particular order, here's how they went. A. I broke into a super Walmart, though really, I'd argue it's not breaking in if the automatic doors still work and let me waltz right through. I managed to find one of those giant LED spotlight things you can put out on your lawn. Intended to be for, like, deck the halls level Christmas light displays, I assume. I set it all up with red and green lasers and put it out on the lawn of a random house. Then I purposefully taunted a pack of Calebs and got them to chase me to the house. And well, it went great. I turned on the lasers, the Calebs got festive Christmas lasers to the eyes every way they turned. It was beautiful. Only one problem. Turns out my lovely light show also attracted a herd of Brents. More on them later. It got messy real fast, and I almost didn't live to see another day. There were explosions involved. So, probably not a great long-term plan if I want to survive. B. I tried to dig under the dome. No, really. I grabbed a shovel and worked for hours, with periodic monster avoidance breaks. And I have bad news. The dome extends underground. Or at least some element of it does. Because I kept hitting what felt like a solid concrete wall with my shovel once I reached where the dome would be. I dug so much I almost passed out. Not my best move. I'd literally be a free monster lunch. But as far as I could go down, the dome went down too. So, it wasn't an easy overlook escape like I had hoped. C. I searched for one of those high-powered lasers teachers use. No luck yet. I broke into an office supply store. That one was actually breaking in, like I literally broke a window and climbed through it. And scoured as many shelves as I could before a table of food appeared behind me, at which point I realized I should get going, since I was not in the mood to deal with an Ashley. But I didn't find any of those nifty lasers, so I guess I'll keep looking. And there you have it. Ingenious ideas, really, and I salute you for them. I was real eager to try them, and even more hopeful that they'd work. They didn't, obviously. But that's no one's fault, except maybe Caleb's. Fuck Caleb. Something else happened too, which is what's really been keeping me busy. Y'all aren't ready for this. Are you sitting down? Maybe you should sit down, because I'm about to blow your mind. I saw another human. Yeah, that's right. I saw another human. I'm not the last one. What a fucking relief. Let's be honest, if I'm the best my city had to offer, humanity's in trouble. But I'm not. Not yet, anyway. It was about a week ago, right after I'd fled from the office supply store to avoid an Ashley encounter, actually. The sun was setting, and Mr. Bailey was perched on my shoulder as I walked home. I was a little disappointed about my lack of new laser pointers, but I'd also found some nice box cutters while I was there, which kind of made up for it. Hey, they're not the best weapon, but they'll do in a pinch. And that's when I saw her. Well, I saw the laser first. From behind a corner of a building up ahead of me, about 2 blocks away, a Caleb stumbled out of a back alley, shrieking its horrible shriek, a red laser aimed directly at its eye. I just stood there, my heart pounding, because let's be real, it couldn't see me anyway with the laser burning its eye holes. And I really wanted to see the source of the laser, since it might be another human. And another human would mean, 1, I wasn't the last of a decimated species in the ruins of a city, and 2, the other human was also capable enough to have figured out the laser trick. Still screaming, the Caleb fell to its knees, and as soon as it went down, a person dashed out of the alley and just fucking annihilated the monster. I almost felt bad for it, but not quite. The person had what appeared to be an axe, and they swung it first into the Caleb's chest, knocking it forcefully onto its back, and then repeatedly onto the Caleb's neck, somehow still managing to keep the laser directed at its eye the whole damn time. Did this person have 3 arms? No. I don't know how it was possible, but within seconds the Caleb's head had come clean off, and I watched in shock, and yes, definitely awe, as it rolled over the curb, smoke still curling up and drifting into the sky from its obliterated eye sockets. And then it got better, because the person looked up and saw me, and it was a girl, probably somewhat close to my age, although from 2 blocks away and without having seen another human in months, who was I to tell? Mr. Bailey started purring on my shoulder, which I took as a sign. I could have a friend again. I mean, I love Mr. B with all my heart, but even the best cat in the whole entire world isn't the same as another person to talk to, and I think my reflection was getting tired of hearing the same shit from me all the time. I was about to open my mouth to call out to her, when she simply raised up a hand, flipped me off, and ran away. Not what I expected. I sputtered for a moment, confused, until Mr. Bailey meowing in my ear and digging his claws into my shoulder brought me back to focus. I had to go after her. That's what heroic people in movies do, isn't it? Also, guys, I'm just so fucking lonely. That's the real reason. Anyway, I chased after her, but damn, she was fast. Or maybe she knew this part of the city better than I did. because I had ventured slightly out of my usual zone of operation to go to that supply store. Or maybe I just haven't run in a while. I'll admit I haven't. Mr. B, like the champion he is, somehow managed to hold on, although it wasn't for lack of claws. Following her was exhausting. I caught a few glimpses of her green jacket or of her hair whipping behind her as she turned corners, but that's as close as I got. At least, until she turned into a long, dark alley behind a restaurant, and I thought I had her, since it was a dead end. But false confidence is a bitch. Suddenly she just vanished. It was dark, so I couldn't really see where she'd gone. I figured there must have been a secret door or something in this alley somewhere, maybe even leading to wherever she was making her home. I didn't have a flashlight with me since I'd planned on being home before dark, and I didn't think my lasers would be sufficient as a search tool. Plus, I still did want to be back before dark. At night is when the monsters are most dangerous. They can still see you, but you can't see them. And if I left now, I might be able to make it. So I turned around and walked towards the entrance of the alley, promising myself I'd pay attention to the route on my way home so I could come back in the daylight. Daydreaming about talking to another human again, I almost didn't notice that Mr. B had jumped down and come to a halt by my leg, hissing his cute little head off, until it was too late. What I did notice was that it had suddenly gotten a hell of a lot darker in front of my face, even though the sun was still setting. It was an unnatural darkness, if you catch my drift. I realized just in time, and as I pulled out my knife, I started chanting, "Blueberry, blueberry, 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 blueberry!" Apparently the darkness had nearly enveloped me before I noticed it, because I watched in horror and relief as the black clouds immediately recoiled backwards from around me as soon as I started my recitation. Following the path of their hasty retreat with my eyes, I saw exactly what I'd expected standing 6 feet away from me. A Dylan. Its deadly dark fog was returning to the usual post surrounding its body, and it was covering its ears and glaring at me with its lantern-like eyes, all while I continued to repeat, "Blueberry, blueberry, blueberry!" as forcefully as I could. It occurs to me that right about now I probably lost you. You're reading that last part and thinking, is he having a breakdown? But I assure you, I am not. Let me fill you in on rule number 9, and hopefully you'll stop questioning my sanity. For now, it's intact. No, really. Promise. Rule number 9. If you see a figure made of shadow, or if it gets dark unnaturally fast, start saying blueberry, and don't stop saying it. Seriously, you can't use the word blueberry too much. That rule exists because of Dylans. Long story short, they're creepy motherfuckers. They're tall, dark figures that mostly look like an angry shadow come to life. The only color on them is their eyes. Glowing yellow, shining out of the inky darkness like nightlights. They are always surrounded by thick black fog, and by black I mean obsidian. You can't see worth shit through those clouds. It swirls around them. I think it may be a living entity of its own, or maybe just an extension of the Dylan itself. I won't get into too many details of how I figured out rule number 9, but here's the fairly abridged version. When I first encountered a Dylan, its fog reached my arm before I realized what was happening. And where it touched me, my skin immediately began to blister before my eyes. God damn did it hurt. In a matter of seconds, it looked like I was boiling, and it was horrifying, so I just started running. The Dylan and its fog chased me, of course, and they were fast. I had to find a way to stop it, and soon, my knife and lasers had done nothing. Also, my vision was blurring from the pain in my arm, and based on my high school experiences, I was pretty sure it had given me a chemical burn, meaning that cloud was acidic. And if it was acidic and it touched more of me, my entire body would blister and burn until my skin actually did melt off, and my entire body slowly, painfully dissolved. Thanks so much, Caleb, for that chemistry experiment disaster junior year, by the way. Fuck you. Anyway, I ended up in a toy store. Don't judge my choices, it was the closest building. As I felt burning on my neck, the clouds were almost overtaking me, I reached an aisle consisting entirely of talking dolls. You know, the kind that cry and laugh or say, "Feed me," or some shit like, "I love playing with you." And, well, I was desperate, and my defenses had not worked. And I'm a bit of an idiot, and the Dylan was quite literally breathing down my neck. So I started grabbing dolls and throwing them at it. Better than nothing, right? One after the other, each of them shrieking something different or giggling creepily or sobbing invisible tears. It would have been hilarious if I wasn't terrified of melting in acid. I don't think it would have worked, except that by some miracle, I happened to grab one that cheerily said, "Hi, my name is Blueberry Cobbler." No, I'm not shitting you. That was its name, apparently. Maybe it was like a strawberry shortcake ripoff? I have no idea. And yes, you guessed it. On the word blueberry, the clouds retreated just a bit, and for a second I saw the Dylan cover its ears and glare at me, those lantern eyes narrowing to slits. In a show of exceedingly quick thinking for me, I put 2 and 2 together, and as the clouds started to rush back, I hesitantly tried it myself, praying my last-ditch idea would work, shouting, "Blueberry!" It did the same thing. I swear I almost got down my knees and kissed the floor in thanks. I was saved, with the weirdest tactic in history ever used against a monster. Ever. But I wasn't gonna ask questions. So I just kept repeating the word blueberry over and over, and its fog stayed tightly wrapped around only its own body, and it came no closer as it desperately covered its ears. The story's less interesting after that. Turns out, they don't like direct sunlight, which is why they often show up as the sun is setting. Nighttime is the worst. Honestly, I said before that it's not great to be out at night because monsters can see you, but you can't see them. That's true. The main reason, though, is Dylan's. It's fucking impossible to see them in the dark, since they basically are the darkness, and they could wrap you in acid clouds and, I don't know, eat your half-melted pile of goo body. I don't actually know what they do with their victims. But I assume they eat them, since I've never found an acid-mutilated body, before you have time to get out a single blueberry. I actually did guess that light would hurt them, because light and darkness are natural enemies, you know? Seemed kinda obvious, and sometimes when you're lucky, the obvious answer is the right one. So I basically just chanted blueberry, blueberry, blueberry over and over until dawn broke, and then I slowly lured it out of the store as the sun came up. I got to watch as the rays of morning sunlight hit it dead on. The Dylan and its black fog instantly sizzled and dissolved into what amounted to black sand. I rubbed my shoe in it, and then I left. Back to my most recent encounter. Sorry to disappoint, but I did much the same thing. Unfortunately, when you meet a Dylan, it's a game of endurance. Either you manage to stay up all night mindlessly chanting blueberry until it doesn't sound like a word anymore, which happens about 5 minutes in, so it's a long night, or you fall asleep, or lose your voice. If you do that, it's game over for you. The Dylan will be on you in an instant, and all you'll see is those glowing night lights for a few seconds before, presumably, you die of chemical burns or your skin melts off, whichever comes first. I leaned against the wall in the alley and said blueberry all night. What a fantastic life I lead. When it got dark, I walked and stood under a street lamp so that I could see at least a few feet around me. I didn't sit down, because I was afraid I'd doze off if I did. Mr. Bailey, the good friend that he is, didn't sleep either. He wound around my ankles at first, chirping, as if to reassure me he was still there, and eventually he sat by my leg like a little furry statue, staring intently at the Dylan's golden eyes. I was grateful for the comfort. See, here's the thing. I don't know how Dylan's work exactly. Your guess is as good as mine as to why the word blueberry holds them off, but also prevents them from leaving before the sun rises. Somehow they can do nothing but cover their ears and glare. Is it a curse word or some kind of magic spell in their language? Is it a linguistic trap somehow? Does it hurt them, control them, both? Most of all, is there a way to develop or expand upon it so that it kills them? It would be nice not to have to pull an all-nighter and lose my voice every time I encounter one. I sure as hell don't know. I'd like to find out someday, mostly because I'd like to be able to off those fuckers in a more timely fashion. But at least for now, I have something that lets me survive them, even if I sound like a complete fool doing it. In the morning, right before the sun came up, I stepped closer to the Dylan, my voice nearly cracking as I continued to repeat the mantra. It glared at me with those narrow yellow eyes, and since I couldn't say anything else besides a blueberry, I settled for flipping at the bird, with both middle fingers. I hope it got the message. Rather anticlimactically, I watched as the dark shadow creature in a terrific dark acid cloud collapsed to black dust in front of me. I sighed in relief, and Mr. B meowed and jumped up onto my shoulder. Then I heard a terrible half-growl, half-screech from around the corner, and seconds later saw Caleb sprinting at me. Just another Monday morning, you know? Anyway, that was last week, and obviously I survived, since I'm here giving my updates to all of you. In summary, don't fuck with rule number 9 unless you want to die a terrible, acid-driven death. Talking all night is a lot harder than you think. I still have a chemical burn on my arm and the back of my neck. The skin is all blackened there now. Real great. Best of all, I found another human, and I'm determined to meet her. No luck yet. In case you're wondering, the door in the alley led to a basement that was empty, except for a single slip of paper and a small vial filled with black sand sitting together on the floor. On the paper was written this: I'm sure your voice would be pleasant if you knew any words other than blueberry. Nice work, though. Enjoy the souvenir. Then, in small letters at the bottom, don't let this go to your head. You're okay, but the cat's a hell of a lot cuter. I mean, she's right. Mr. B is the cutest. Now I have to find her. Monsters be damned. It's kind of nice to have a goal besides simply surviving. We'll see how it goes. If nothing else, I have a snazzy vial of black sand that used to be a Dylan before killing it by chanting blueberry for 12 hours. What a world I live in where that sentence makes sense.